This is Inhale, Exhale, an air quality podcast. Hey, and welcome to the introductory episode of Inhale, Exhale, an air quality podcast. I'm Miss Carmen, a science educator in Brooklyn, New York, and I will be your host. Before we dive in, I do want to give a hearty thanks of appreciation to very supportive friends who made this podcast possible. Thank you so, so much. At the time of recording this episode, the temperature here is 53 degrees Fahrenheit and the AQI is 21. Let's dive right in. Did you know that over 90% of the world's population breathes polluted air? Think about that for a second. Right now, as you inhale and exhale, you're taking in not just oxygen, but also teeny tiny particles and gases that you can't see and often can't smell. Some of them are harmless, but others not so much. Back when I was young and spry, climate change and the effects of air pollution felt like a faraway, intangible, we'll worry about that later type of thing. Unfortunately, this life has afforded me several opportunities to bear witness to climate change catastrophes and air pollution emergencies in real time. It's quite sobering, particularly when you're a parent and now you have to give meaningful thought to the type of world we're leaving for future generations. Think about it this way. Every single day, we make decisions about what we put into our bodies. Maybe we check food labels, avoid certain ingredients, drink water instead of soda because we know it's better for us. But how often do we think about the air we breathe and what's in that? As a science educator, I spend my days teaching science to young kids. The very same kids who will inherit a planet far more different than the one you and I know right now. Over the years, I've talked quite a bit about air quality among my community, but it was more so in response to an immediate issue we were facing at the time, like an air quality emergency. Far too often, it felt like I was having a soapbox moment versus actually providing education, something meaningful, useful. Me, I lean into being an action-oriented person, so I decided to do something about it. With the support of people who love me, we find ourselves here. Welcome, once again, to Inhale, Exhale, an air quality podcast where we break down the science of air quality and what it means for your health, your community, and the world. In this first episode, we're starting with the basics. What is air quality? Why should you care? And how does it affect you every single day? Here's something you probably don't think about. On a regular day, you take about 22,000 breaths. That's roughly 16 breaths per minute. Assuming you're not working out right now, you'll take at least 200 breaths just while listening to this podcast. Breathing. It's one of the most basic things we require to stay alive, and yet we rarely stop to consider what's actually in the air we're breathing. Let's pause for a second and imagine. Picture yourself outside on a crisp, cool morning. You take a deep breath in, fresh air. You exhale, and it feels good. Now, picture yourself standing on a busy street. Cars going by, maybe a bus or two. There's exhaust in the air. You breathe in, but this time there's a faint smell of fuel, maybe Even a slight irritation is felt in your throat. That difference, that seemingly small difference, that's air quality at work. Unfortunately, air quality is far more nuanced than that and often far less obvious than the example I just gave. But maybe you've noticed, on certain days, that the air looks fine but feels different. Maybe your eyes sting, your throat feels scratchy, or you get a headache. Maybe you feel sluggish when you go outside, or maybe you used your inhaler a bit more than usual. These are all real signs that the air around you might not be as clean as you think it is. Air pollution directly affects our health on a daily basis, and it's been monitored for decades to help us better understand how the air is doing. Although it's not on the news day to day, we've known about the health impacts of breathing in polluted air for a very long time. So when did we start paying attention to air quality? The reality is, people have been concerned about pollution for centuries. But the modern era of actual air quality monitoring started in the mid-20th century, when cities worldwide were dealing with catastrophic levels of smog. Seriously, something we've never seen in our current time. Historically, two of the most significant major wake-up calls were the Great Smog of London in 1952 and the Donora Smog of 1948 in Pennsylvania. In these two examples, thousands of people got sick and many thousands died. This is when governments finally started realizing that, hey, we need to start paying attention and do something about this. That's what it finally took. Illness and death on an incredible scale. And even then, the change wasn't quick. We'll cover more on the history of air pollution in a later episode. So what exactly is air quality? It's a measure of how clean or polluted the air is at any given time in a specific area. Think of it like a report card for how the air is doing for where you live. When you check the weather on your app, you might see something called the AQI, which is the Air Quality Index. This is an informational tool that tells you how healthy or unhealthy the air is that day. A high AQI number means more pollution is detected, which indicates a higher health risk for breathing. But here's the catch. Air quality isn't just about outdoor pollution. Many of us assume that staying indoors can keep us safe. But indoor air can be just as polluted, if not worse, than outdoor air. Think about cooking fumes, dust, mold, and even the chemicals in everyday cleaning products. The air we breathe at home matters just as much, if not more, as the air outside. The AQI, or Air Quality Index, is specifically focused on outdoor air quality and is publicly accessible information made possible thanks to sensors that monitor what stuff and how much of it is in the air. Depending on where you check the AQI, the information is either available as live data or averaged over a period of time. Information on how the air is doing is available on a worldwide, regional, and local scale. Thanks to citizen scientists, so regular people like you and me, there might even be an air quality sensor in your very own neighborhood, providing hyperlocal access to this important information. PurpleAir.com is an excellent place to check air quality data, which I highly recommend and personally use. Here, the main number you'll see is the 10-minute live average for how the air is doing in that particular area. Now that we've warmed up, here's what I want you to take away from this first episode. You breathe over 22,000 times in one day, so the quality of that air matters. Air pollution isn't someone else's problem to worry about. It affects your health, your energy levels, and even your lifespan. Scientists and governments have been monitoring air quality for decades because we know it's a critical part of public health and environmental protection. So what can you do? The first step is becoming aware and educated. Start paying attention to air quality reports in your local area or seek the information out yourself. Keep listening to this podcast because we'll be diving more into air quality and what it means for you. My goal for this podcast is to educate and empower so that you have the tools and knowledge you need to make the best decisions for you and your family as it relates to air quality. Coming up, we discuss what's actually in the air we breathe. Thanks for listening today, and make sure to tune in for another episode of Inhale, Exhale, an air quality podcast about the air we breathe. Like what you heard? Share it with a friend. This is Miss Carmen, signing off and reminding you that no matter where you are on this planet, we're all in this together. Until next time, breathe easy.